A year ahead of the 20th anniversary of the Black Broad-Based Economic Empowerment Act, President Cyril Ramaphosa has revealed that he plans to appoint a new council this week to improve the key, missed BEE targets. He went to emphasize that government's commitment to empowerment as unwavering, saying the country's recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic depended on it. Joining us now to weigh in on the President declaration is Black Business Council CEO Kganki Matabane. Mr. Matabane, good evening and thank you very much for your time. Good to have you with us tonight on In Focus. It was a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe earlier this month or maybe last month, that the President was at your gala dinner, where he, of course, went on to defend the transformation, particularly black economic transformation in the country, saying that all of you gathered there would be lying if you said government has done nothing as far as economic transformation is concerned, saying it's not enough, but you can't say we have done nothing. Do you agree with that statement?
Good evening, Tao, and the viewers, and thank you very much for providing us with this opportunity. And maybe let me start with the issue of the BEE Advisory Council. The council is long overdue. The council is provided in the BEE Act of 2006, Section 6. Basically compels the President to appoint a BEE Advisory Council. The previous council was appointed by the previous President in 2014, October 2014 to be precise. And then its time or its office expired in 2019 of October. So it's almost close to 3 years now that the country has not had a council. Yeah. So it's not a new development, it's a thing that has already been there as prescribed by the Act. Okay. So as far as we're concerned, this is long overdue. And as you've seen it, it's an announcement about an announcement. Yeah. Who will have hoped that the President by now will have announced the council. He indicated in our event 2 weeks ago that he was going to appoint the council the previous Monday, so we are still waiting. So hopefully by the end of this week it will have been appointed, because it's important that even from the optics point of view, for any government that takes BEE serious, it should not be waiting for almost 3 years to appoint a BEE Advisory Council, because the BEE Advisory Council's job is to provide guidance on the monitoring of BEE and how BEE is doing, and advice on policy interventions and changes that need to happen.
Right. And I think that's where my question is going, because I wanted to ask you that, because if indeed there is a council in place, and there was a council in place previously, so my point is, did it do enough, or did it do a great deal to the point where the President can say, well, you as black business people gathered in that room, you can't say we've done nothing?
Yeah, remember, it's important to always be fact-based in whatever we do. So let's look at the facts. And let's start at economic ownership. We were sitting 28 years into democracy. Black people own less than 5% of the JSE. In terms of ownership of management control, so the people who are running JSE listed companies, almost 70% of the CEOs there are still white males. So I think those facts, they speak for themselves. They don't even necessarily need a motivation. So you then have to move from those facts and say, where are we sitting? Are we 28 years into democracy? Have you done well or not well? So if you look at the facts, we have not done well. We've done very, very little to empower black people. And the mood out there, when we interact with our members, there's a lot of frustration and anger. And us as the representative of those members, we also have to come out very, very clear and express the frustration and express the anger of our members, because that's our job. So from a fact point of view, there's so much that needs to be done. If we take the trail of less than 5% ownership that has happened over the past 28 years, you just have to do the extrapolation and see how long is it going to take for black people to own at least 51%. It will probably take maybe 50 to 100 years before it happens. So those are the issues that we are raising.
So those two issues that you're raising in the context of having a council, which is a broad body that comprises government, business, labor, and other stakeholders, to what would you attribute this frustration that you're talking about, that an agitation that's coming from your members, one, but two, the facts that you are referring to what extent can you attribute that to the failure of this body, that is the Advisory Council, in bringing up these issues to the point that they are addressed?
As I indicated, the body hasn't been appointed, so there haven't been people for almost 3 years, which probably maybe can explain why there has been a slow process, and also when you look at government has not been pushing for economic transformation, because the purpose of the council is to sit there and advise the president and say, President, this is the mood in the country, these are the figures that we have, we were proposing that 1, 2, 3 should happen. But in the absence of that type of a body, where does the president get that information? So hence we've been agitating that this council should be appointed, because then it will take all the data that it has, got capacity to do research, and say to the president, this is the situation on the ground. This what needs to be done. If you're talking about 40% set aside for women, you can't do it without legislation. These are the things that you need to do. And then you can then measure whether the council has been effective or not, depending on what it has put on the table and what the president has implemented.
Yeah, President, pointing to a regression, at least in the last 2 decades, and there are some areas where we've gone backwards. You've already mentioned the increase of black management control. He mentions upscaling skills development, entrenching enterprise development, and broadening procurement to give opportunities to black women and the youth. What are we not doing that we should be doing, and what are we doing that we should improve on then?
Yeah, what we need to do, because in South Africa, legislation is very important. So what we need to do, everything that we talk about, we need to put it on. We need to put it as legislation, because if you don't put it as legislation, you cannot actually implement it. You're going to be taken to court all the time and then lose, because the primary legislation does not necessarily promote what you're talking about. So if you talk about set aside for youth, set aside for businesses owned by people living with disabilities, set aside for women, that can never happen if it's not in a legislation. And hence, again, we've been agitating for the public procurement bill. But it's important that even in the public procurement bill, we must make sure that those set aside are included in there, because once they are there, it's passed by Parliament, by Cabinet and Parliament, no one can take you to court and win. But if it's not there, you try to implement it through some policies. It's not going to happen, because once someone takes you to court, the judges are looking at the legislation and say, but you should have done better here. The issues of management control is very, very important, because once a company is got a majority black people or majority women, the way they do business change, and they will be able then to, from a procurement point of view, they'll be able to direct procurement to the right places. When we come to enterprise development, I think what we've seen is that most of the companies, they do what you call tick boxes. So they will say we spend 5 billion on enterprise development, but when you ask them, you sit down with them and ask them, where are these black and women-owned businesses that you've developed? They can't show you. We've proposed an intervention that why can't we take all the enterprise development funds and put them in almost like a super fund, a fund similar to the Solidarity Fund. Put all the money there, let the companies get their B points, but then let's have a business people, prominent business people who have achieved to run the funds like the way Solidarity Fund was done. And then let's use that fund to fund black businesses, let's fund women-owned businesses, business owned by youth, business owned by people with disabilities. And that way we'll be able to grow the economy, and that would be a support to small businesses. And we all know that when you support small businesses, when you support black business, you are supporting economic growth, because then that will also then deal with the market concentration, because another problem that we have in South Africa is the market concentration. Almost all the sectors are owned by 2, 3, 4 companies. We have to deal with that issue working with the Competition Commission.
Yeah. Are these companies that you mentioned that are concentrated in particular sectors awakened to the fact that economic transformation and economic growth are intertwined?
I think some of them they are, but some of them maybe they hope the changes will never happen. As I indicated, they'll tell you we spent 5 billion on, as an example, they spent 5 billion on enterprise development. But when you ask them, who are these enterprises? And they can't tell you, because they do a tick box accounting entry of moving funds from A to B without any impact. So when we engage with them, we're saying, let's move away from compliance and move towards impact. Yeah. We need to be able to see impact. When you said, I've developed so many small businesses, you need to show us those small businesses and show us how you are also procuring from them. Because you don't just develop businesses for the sake of doing it. Yeah. You develop businesses so that they can be ready to be part of your procurement. Yeah. If that is not happening, then it's just a tick box exercise, which is not helpful to anyone. It's not really helpful to the very same companies that are concentrated in the market, because they need to understand that that type of a situation is unsustainable. It's not helping economic growth. It's not helping them to grow the customers, because you need to grow customer base for them to continue to grow.
We've got employment numbers coming out also tomorrow. One of the areas the president is pointing in his letter that we have regressed is the upscaling of skills development, which in a way is also linked to employment. Now, at that gala, one of the challenges that the president put to business was particularly black business. Go and interrogate as to why this economy is not creating jobs. Black business should be seized with this question. Do you have answers?
Yeah, we have raised some of the solutions, potential solutions. For example, the issue of localization. We're talking about the localization, but we're not implementing it. We are the biggest consumers of ARV in South Africa. Why can't we have a company in South Africa that produces ARV? Instead, we keep on importing them. So it's important that we at some stage, and that stage is now, we should stop talking and implementing. Because when you localize, you will be able to create jobs. When you localize, you will be able to grow the economy, because then there are multiplier effects. For example, when you localize, if you localize, for example, the manufacturing of the ARV medication, there will be other industries that are going to benefit from that, and that will create jobs. And then the other thing that we will propose is the one I spoke about, because most of our members and small businesses in general, they are struggling with access to funding, and we don't have enough institutions in South Africa to provide funding for small business. So we need to make sure that we provide that type of intervention so that we fund small business and we can grow the economy. So that there are proposals that we've submitted to the president, we've submitted to NETSEC, and we're saying let's stop talking and start implementing. That's what we need as a country.
Overall, are you optimistic about the broad-based Black Economic Empowerment Advisory Council? When the announcement is officially made, of course, not the announcement about the announcement.
Yeah, we're very hopeful, and we're encouraged by the president dedicating the entire letter to Black economic empowerment, which in a way is a sign that he had the message that we had for him in the dinner. He has had the message from our members that members are very angry, they are very disappointed with the slow progress that is happening.
Yeah.
And we hope this is the beginning of new things to come. We hope this is the beginning. We'll see more ministers talking about economic transformation, but also implementing. As I say, it's easier to talk, but it's difficult to implement. As a country, we need to stop talking and implement. If you can start implementing what we're talking about, the 40% set aside for women and youth, it will take us somewhere forward.
I appreciate your time. Kganki Matabane, he's the CEO of the Black Business Council.